Hi, everyone. Welcome to 5D Channels and Chats. I'm here with Vina, who's a spiritual confidant, channel, and healer, and we are talking about ET communication. Hi, Vina.
Hey,
Thank you so much for coming.
absolutely.
Welcome to 5D Channels and Chats with Rachel Chamness. As a shamanic channel and mentor, I'll be sharing wisdom and healing from higher dimensions through channeling beings of light. You will also hear liquid Reiki shamanic sound healing, channels between intuitives, and discussion on higher dimensional healing and channeling. You'll find links and more in the show notes, so be sure to check them. You can find me at soundwavesheal.com and my Facebook group, 5D Daily Spiritual Healers in Higher Dimensions. So, Vina, after I watched you do your light language and the way that you also use your hands when you're doing light language, and then I noticed that for a while I was doing it too, but I was doing it a different way than I did before. The way that you do it is almost like the light language is in two ways. You're signing it and you're saying it. And the way that I've always done light language always felt like it was two different things that I was doing. Like the hand gestures of my light language while I was speaking or singing light language were connected but not the same. But yours seemed to be like the translation of what you're saying, which is so cool. And I love it so much. And I started to find myself doing that. And then I watched the movie Arrival, and that movie paired with what happened blew me away because it's just opened my mind to all the different ways that ETs might communicate. So I just wanted to tell you that, and let's talk about it.
I might have some insight to that. And it's because our neural pathways with our channeling, our energy healing, our light language and the way we speak, our light language in the way we write the sigils, and the light language that in which we do the mudras, they're all starting to link up together and forming a stronger link. As we raise our vibration, we have our light body, and that's where we get to experience more of like our multidimensional expression. And I think just seeing me through the mirror neurons, it just starts to connect a little bit. Like when other people see you sing and see you do light language, it activates them.
Right.
And I feel very Italian right now, just using my hands. And I think it all starts to connect with one another. And yeah, the movie you recommended, Arrival, was really interesting because it was focusing on the language, the ET language, and the expression of their own unique linguistic and how it's nonlinear.
Yeah. I thought there was so much about that movie that I want to talk about. But first, I just want to say, absolutely, I feel like you activated me to signing as if I'm also signing for the deaf, like sign language of the language that I was speaking. And that was so cool. So then, yes, when I watched the Arrival movie, and part of the movie was that their sound, the sounds that they make, their audio sounds are not the same as they're written, and they write their language with their own smoke, I guess. So very interesting. They don't need anything outside of themselves to write their language. And yeah, it was nonlinear. There was no time. They were 5D at least. I thought it was so cool.
Me too. And when you think about like most of their, if you watch the movie, like you notice that a lot of the written language that they use with their ink,
Yeah, it's like squid ink.
squid ink, it has a circular loop, and that represents an infinite loop where there's no beginning and there's no end. And I don't know how much of this movie I can reveal giving it away, but I thought another observation was that the linguistics daughter, her name is Hannah. And
Right.
Hannah, if you spell it out loud, like Hannah, there's like the beginning and the end of it. It's all, there's no like, how do I say it?
So it's a palindrome.
Okay. And so it reads the same forward as it is backward, similar with light language and our perceived nonlinear time where past, present, future are all one.
Right. In the fifth dimension, there's no time. So they were doing a whole complex sentence in a millisecond. They were using both hands, both sides at the same time. So there was no beginning and no end. It's like, here's the beginning of the sentence as we know it as a time sentence, and here's the end, and here's it all at once. And for them to figure that out was so hard because we don't talk like that.
But the more we start to see life in symbolism, which happens a lot with our intuitive abilities, the more depth perception we have, concepts and understanding of, maybe we could say, like the quantum realm, or like you mentioned, 5D.
Yeah, that's so cool. And as you're saying this, it makes me think. So usually when I do a trance channel, my eyes are closed or maybe they're open, depending, but I'm letting them speak through me. And then afterwards, I usually tell everybody what I saw. So they show me things that they don't put into words so that I understand what they're saying. And sometimes I feel like I have to explain that to really make it make sense, because there's a whole nother dimension to what they're saying. It can't all be in words. So they have to show me too what they're saying. And it's a weird thing. And that kind of makes me think too, suddenly, yeah, it's like a dimension. It's an extra dimension of it.
And at the same time, I just remember watching you channel when we were at the retreat together. While you were also experiencing imagery, I was also experiencing like a sensory feeling of frequency, and that was being activated within me. So even though I'm hearing information like linearly and auditory, I'm also like, the empathic side of me, the clairsentient side, is also feeling more of the 5D energies. And the more I feel it, the more a picture or a mind movie, like Charlie Chaplin silent movie, starts to emerge within my mind's eye. And so we're experiencing language essentially in different ways to help us understand the meaning in a more multidimensional way.
Right. Oh, so cool. You really helped me put that together in this conversation. Yes, that's right. Would you do a light language transmission for the audience so they can see how you do it? It's really beautiful.
Sure. Absolutely. And will you like play with me too? And like we can go back and forth and see what happens.
I love doing that.
Okay. So Kakorea elaki ishikro ikaka alakare suku ui lui kukuara shakaria tu karanana ukukolieta asa tuturi tututu.
Sorry, kasaro suniyatu kayasaragi tu sunanananiyatu kayasayade alaya nutusi ayato to see but to get a see amacho see alaya dea. Hey, apatukuru sunini apatukashia.
Tututu hiaka nanasia tuturuluiana shikaruli ketatatania tutuara.
Hutiesiro kushnaya tsuyamanakayo soriatori si alaya. Oya namba tukukuku kisi amachukare sala tia sonshno ayara.
Ayatuduliata niyaku tutulia satatalu kututulia shiana tatalu sutuarata.
Hai sokuru kisi apachota si amanoto yaro yamaisho. Ayanto kiki.
Shui kui kakaria nanala hiruru tatatata. Do you feel energy? Like I just feel like your wavelength.
I heard opening. I said, what are we doing? And they said,
feel
opening.
Like opening. I just feel like your wave, like the energy of you is just like coming out.
Oh, that's interesting. It's how you feel it. Mm-hmm. What I did is I usually see who I'm channeling, and I saw this orangish red blue avian. I mean, we call them blue avians, but I see them, they have different colors. And I could just see her like beak and like her feathers on her face. And I was so fascinated by that. I was like, oh, it's pretty. But then I was like, oh, wait, I need to know what we're doing. What are we doing?
What was interesting was like, I had a precognition before you were mentioning the blue avians, is that I kept seeing parrots.
Well, she looks like that a little bit. I mean, it's like I just saw these feathers on her face. Yeah.
And I think that might indicate, because you're very clairvoyant, and you're not afraid of really seeing what these different beings appear, that with me, I do still have some fears and resistances with truly seeing them in full form. And so I think right now they're like, okay, we'll show you a parrot. That's a safer expression of what we're tapped into, what you're tuning into.
Definitely.
Yeah. So you saw something? Were there any other like words or feelings or
So in that instance, I felt
concepts?
myself doing the light language with my hands the way I normally do, where there's sort of moving energy.
Mm-hmm.
And like it feels like they're almost like drawing light language symbols or light codes, so a little bit different. But when I've seen you do light language where it's actually more of a trance channel. When I've seen you
Yeah.
trance channel, you use your hands in a light language signing. I guess that's a little bit different. Would you like to do that? I want to show them that.
So what would you like me to do exactly?
So just trance channel one of your guides or the avians or someone, because when you do the light language signing, which I think is really cool.
Sure. Let's see how they like to express their sign language.
Okay.
Hello, my name is I, and I am the dragon helping you to shift your timelines and navigate through the Akashic field so that you can start to play in this quantum realm, so that you can start to see more from the higher vantage point in which we start to see time as non-linear, time as perfect and divine, knowing that we in this realm do not have too much concept of time being linear, for everything everywhere can exist at once. The key for you to understand and embody this feeling state of accepting this present moment gives you enough room for you to start to recognize the different reasons why you sometimes get stuck, because you have to open up and trust and see how every moment is relevant for you. When you can step into this Akashic realm and download the information for what you call the future, you're able to come back into this physical body with new information as to how to take the next inspired step, as to how to become the person, the version of you that allows this manifestation to occur. But you must trust in this concept of time. Know that as you start to lean more on your spiritual being, your spirituality, you as a light being, are you going to start to feel different? Are you going to start learning the language of your soul and changing your physiology, changing your neural pathways so that you are more relaxed, more present, and more in attunement to all this knowledge that you know and have accumulated from various lifetimes? We hope you see this message as one that reminds you that all is well and all will be well in due time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Our transmission for you is complete. So, yeah.
So, okay, I misspoke then. It was the combination of your light language as a signing with the trance channel. But I feel like I saw both, but it's so cool.
Do you feel like it's like my hands are used differently when I am in a light language transmission versus in a channeling state?
Yeah, so before I was thinking that it was light language, but no, it was the way that you were signing while you were speaking. That's what it was.
I have a feeling that maybe the way that I'm signing, it's not like fully me doing. It's
Oh
my
no, you're
spirit
not.
guides and how
Right.
they want to talk. Has that expression, like, have you noticed your hands wanting to move, or like, have you started to see a pattern in what like different hand movements you're
So
doing?
after I saw you do that so many times where you tranced and your hands were expressing it, the same thing that you're saying, it
Yeah.
started to happen to me. So like for a week it was happening. And now I feel like I use my hands, although I used to use my hands a lot with speaking. So it's not really that unusual for me, but I feel like I'm using them more, and that when I trans channel, I'm doing it more. So I feel like you activated me into a sort of sign language that goes with the trance.
Yeah. And what do you think might be happening like for you when you're starting to add that like in the way you channel and the way you share your healings and your teachings? Do you notice anything like different happening for you internally?
Well, I think the first thing I noticed was that it felt like I was adding light language signing. So I do teach light language signing. And so this was sort of a mixture between sign language of what I was speaking and light language. So I felt like I was also healing with my hand. And it feels like these two worlds have come together a little bit more since then, for sure, which is really neat. Because, of course, I love that. I'm all about let's mix healing and messages because they go together and we should be doing that. Yeah.
So, I just want to learn a little bit more about your background. Which came first? Was it the light language or was it the trance channeling?
I think light language was first.
Okay. And then would you say that the light language made it easier for you to trance channel?
No, not at first. I don't think it was combined at all. It was like two separate things. And then in the past, I don't know how long, but then I started to put them together because that's what I call my liquid Reiki shamanic sound healing. It's like a mixture of all that. It's a mixture of channeling beings, channeling their healing and their messages. It's Reiki, it's light language, it's all that together. But in the past year, I have been teaching my students to use their light language healing with every trance channel that they do. And so now this feels like a more circular or complete, to then add them together to where they're both at the same time, like a message with healing hands, I guess.
I love that. I think what it's doing is that it's just building more neural pathways with our intuitive abilities, and so that they all work holistically together. I used to think that light language was just for healing and intention setting. And while I knew I was channeling, I did not really like draw a link to it also being connected to maybe like different starseed languages and ETs until when I started doing more of the light language. I could see or just have like my claircognizance just want to translate. And that is when I realized, oh, light language is not just for clearing, but it's raising your frequency so that you are starting to tap into the dimensions where you can communicate with light beings. And
That's right.
That was how I connected, because the words in English could be translated in between. And so that was my path. I saw it as separate too, but then it just all started connecting together.
Yes. And I have been connecting them in different ways, but now I really feel it's more together. And the cool thing is that when you start bringing through light codes, it changes you so much. You really change. And it's just once I watched that movie, The Arrival, then I started to realize that we think of language in a linear way and in a very specific way, the way that we use language, but that it can be so different. It doesn't have to be heard and seen and written. Like in the movie, whatever noise they were making was not related to what they were saying. So they never said what it was. Maybe it was raising the frequency for them to understand their words. I just felt like there was a lot of channeled messages or disclosure in this movie because they were 5D. Like there was that part where their ships leave and they disappear. They don't just leave the atmosphere. They just turn into smoke, which made me feel like they went into like a fifth dimension. And there was just a lot in there that I felt like the more you watch, the more you get it. The second time I watched it, I was like, oh, I'm just getting so much more. And the first time I watched it, I had so many downloads. I had to like go take a nap.
I think you were experiencing what the character in the movie Dr. Banks was experiencing. The more you start getting acquainted with the language, first you're just trying to decipher it, but then you're realizing like, oh, that interaction with the language has some energetic power, and that energetic power is maybe rewiring your nervous system or helping you think in a nonlinear way. Because she started having like flashbacks. We don't know if it's of the past or the future or of different timelines of herself, which is able to help her piece together different inner knowings like claircognizance. I just know this. It's because she's able to see the different like timelines happening, which was really key to helping crack the code of like why the aliens are here in the first place, and why she was chosen, and how her life path with her childhood led to maybe the discovery of, oh, permission to being able to decode and understand. What did you think about like the fact that it was created in 2016? Was there anything significant for you in terms of your spiritual awakening around that time?
Oh yeah. In 2016, that's when I was really awakening. That was about the year that I learned that I was a medium, and then I started studying, and I started with Reiki and light language and everything. That's the year I started, really, because my business started in 2017. So I believe it was 2016 that I began. So I was in a car accident in 2014, and that's what started everything. So there was some things happening before 2016, but that was like where it really heated up. What about you?
2015 was when I heard my first like telepathic transmission from Pleiadians. And I think 2016, 2017 was when I started hiding that I spoke light language. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? Because it would even, it's like when a baby is speaking its first syllable, it's not like fluent. It's like ga 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 ga. I'm like, how do I make it stop? What is this? What is this
did you start that way?
I started that way. That was what came through. I had a acupressure massage, and it was around the back of my throat chakra, which is known as the mouth of God chakra, your connection to your spiritual language and like the gateway to your soul. I think that pressure point unlocked something, and I became even more sensitive than I thought I was already. And so I was like afraid of getting hugs and things and going to the chiropractor, because I'm like, oh my gosh, if they touch me, like I'm gonna start like squawking, and I don't even know, I couldn't control it. And so it weirded me out for a bit, but then I loved that. I loved speaking light language, which was also really fascinating because it was healing me. And it felt like such a high frequency, even though I didn't understand what I was saying.
Yeah. So when I started, of course, I was attuned, but when I started, I had the same few syllables that I said a lot. And I thought that meant that it didn't work or like it was stuck or something. But I think that is how it starts for most people. I remember there was just a few words I would say over and over, and it would be like that, like Halimum, I think was one or something, and it was Halimum, like it would go over and over. And I actually I was attuned several times because I just didn't believe that I was really bringing it forth, because I didn't know enough about it. The problem was I was attuned, but not given much information.
You are an opera singer, and I'm just curious, were there any vocal warm-ups that sounded like language?
Oh, that's an interesting question. There's so many different vocal warm-ups, but usually when you're doing them, you're so concentrating so hard on trying to do the thing exactly right, that I don't think I would have even noticed anything happening to me. I was just, trying to get that thing just right in this tiny little space.
When you were doing this exercise, did you feel like any energies shifting, or was
with the light language? When I started light language?
Both the vocal practices, did it like open you up, or did it actually tighten you up because you associated like you had a lot of pressure?
No, when the light language started coming through, it was interesting because it was different at different times. Is what made me realize I was channeling different beings. But just sometimes it felt like there was just repeated words. It got better and better, but it did feel high vibrational. Like I could feel the frequency. I just doubted myself, basically.
Where did you practice?
When I first started this journey, my child was like 3 or 4. And so he was just starting to go to Mother's Day out twice a week, or, when he was 4, then he went to kindergarten or pre-kindergarten. And so I suddenly had a little more time to myself because I was teaching voice, and most people take a voice lesson after work or after school. So I taught between 3:30 and 6 or 3 and 6. So I would have this morning where I had some time to myself suddenly, and I started using that time to work on the channeling, journaling, light language. So I would do it in my house and I would work on people. So I used a lot of bartering to practice, which is what I always tell my students to do. Just practice and practice on someone so you can get some feedback so that you can see what you're doing. And that's what I did a lot of. Yeah.
Were you singing light language at the time too?
Singing, speaking, and my hands. I think I did some drumming, but not any dancing. That took me a while because that was a little bit of a block.
I want to know what light language dance is.
It's, mostly I use my hands, but it's to me, it feels like when I do the dance that I'm like pushing light codes, and I always do it with my voice too. Like I feel like I'm sending the codes to you.
You
But
are.
people dance, with their whole body. I do a little bit of it when I attune people.
We're going off track here, but I'm curious to know if you've seen like Doctor Strange or
Yes.
the Eternals, Marvel movies.
I don't know if I've seen the Eternals, but I've seen a lot of Marvel movies.
Okay. In order for Doctor Strange to move his hands and bend space and time and open portals, they did hire like an expert in tutting, which is the finger dance.
Really? I love Doctor Strange. Yeah.
Yeah, so he did learn choreography that and like different maybe like sigils that were associated with activating soul power and mysticism.
Really?
In order for him to do his different moves.
I love that movie because it looks like light language. He's using his hands and then they're showing the symbols, and that's how it looks like to me.
I think they did their research because the Eternals, I believe it's another Marvel's movie, but the Eternals, they were speaking in ancient language and it was light language.
That's amazing.
So
there's so much disclosure and all of that in Hollywood. There's tons of it.
Yes, absolutely.
One thing I thought was really cool about the movie is that she comes to this place where she can see herself outside of time, or sort of have a fifth dimensional viewpoint of her life. And she says that some people would be afraid to know all the things that will happen. But for her, she embraces it. It's like she doesn't try to change anything. She just sees it for what it is. This is a learning life where you learn something through trauma, and she doesn't try to change it. And I thought that was so cool because that's exactly what we're doing through our higher self. We're watching ourselves go through these traumas and learn so much, and we're so thrilled at the higher level. Of course, here it sucks. But, it's something that my spirit guides are always saying, you should see your life as a mystery to be solved, or a journey that is like a quest, or, it's exciting. There's a lot of highs and a lot of lows, but it's there for a reason. And you wouldn't want it any other way, even though it feels different here in the 3D,
I got so many tingles when you were talking about that, which means you're speaking truth.
I get that too.
It is interesting when you are, connecting to your higher self or your spirit guides. And it's because you're on like a high frequency, you can see life as a life review from the frequency of love and light. And it's definitely much harder when you come back down to earth and you're dealing with all these like plot twists for your soul's evolution and growth. And you're like, what? This is love. This is accepted. Like you can see it without assigning a story with that, without assigning a negative emotion to it. You can do that. And that's sometimes where I feel like, when I take a step back and I channel or I connect to what I call my inner being, I can do that. I can see life as a Charlie Chaplin movie.
To me, it looks a little different, but I like how you see it, that you have such a great word for it.
What would you say instead? like your perspective?
You know what I often see for myself and for other channels that I work on, like in a session or my students, I see life as if it's a path and I'm above it. So it's like, even it's like a timeline or a path, but you can go to any place or you can see an overview, because when I'm doing a session, it's not like spirit guides are going to tell you everything. That would just ruin all the surprises. And you wouldn't like that, even though you think you would, but you wouldn't. So it's like an impression, It's more like I'm high above this path and I can it's almost like an emotional feeling of what it feels like.
Tell me about your understanding of shifting timelines and manifestation. The reason why is because I think there's some symbolism in the fact that the movie is called The Arrival, and manifestation and quantum leaps. We have arrived.
Oh, I just got chills.
I want to hear you. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Because didn't you manifest something recently, like a TV show?
I did. So it's actually, yes. Okay. And this goes back to what you were saying before. Okay. So I had a really hard 2 weeks, and it wasn't just me. I felt like every session I did, people were like, everything's so heavy and hard. So much shadow work. And I was doing this shadow work and it was difficult. And I didn't know what to do. I almost felt like maybe I need to start all over, like everything, and just completely do something else, change my whole, almost felt like I should do that, even though I knew better. But, for a few moments, I was like, maybe I just start all over, just all kinds of new things. And it just got to the point where I was like, okay, Rachel, you have techniques. You don't have to sit here and be like, oh, what's happening? Like, I could actually find out for myself. So let me use my techniques. I remember I just gave myself this pep talk and I was like, what can I do? Well, obviously I can Reiki myself. And I was like, oh, I can channel my higher self and get some information. So that's what I did. So for 2 days, all I did was channel my higher self for hours, and I just recorded it. Then I put it through a AI to get the transcript so that I could read it back without watching myself, And so I did that and I got all these answers. I asked my higher self all these questions. I wrote them all out. I asked some questions and then I looked exactly at what the higher self said. Because one thing you definitely learn as a trance channel is that what they say and what you think they say are not always the same thing. Sometimes you get a message and you translate it in a certain way, and then later you're upset because you think, well, why did my spirit guides tell me to do such and such? Because that didn't happen at all. And then if you go back and look at the exact words, you'll see that you translated it wrong in your head. So that happens a lot. So sometimes even people blame psychics for giving them the wrong answer when it's actually you just kind of translated it wrong. So I looked exactly at what I said and I tried to write it out, and I got all these answers, but the answers themselves didn't make a lot of sense to me because I was like, I don't see how this would work, but okay, like maybe this is for the future. So that was Monday and Tuesday of the week. And then Thursday, I heard from my friend Kimberly, and she was like, hey, you really should get on this whole ethereal TV thing. They are still looking for a few people. And I said, oh, they reached out to me, but I thought it was spam because when I checked their website, there wasn't any activity. And she said, that's because they haven't launched yet, but it's a really big deal. It's a new TV app and you should use this link. So I used the link. I got a interview the next day at 12 o'clock. So not even 24 hours later, So the next day at 12, I did the interview and they asked me to do it. So now I have a ethereal TV show coming out. It's called Higher Realm Activations is the name of my show. And as soon as I figured that out, then everything that I channeled made sense. Suddenly it made sense. Oh, this is how. And then everything that was like dragging me down was fixed. It suddenly got fixed within the next week because all of that was just my spirit guides trying to be like, you got to do this thing for yourself. And they had to force me to do it, I guess, because I was like, oh, let me help this person. Let me help this person. I wasn't helping myself. So yeah, that happened.
I'm so thrilled. And I can't wait to watch your TV show because I know that's something you've always wanted. And
well, I would just like a way to reach more people in the easiest way possible. Isn't that what we all want? Less like social media posting and time wasting for ourselves.
You know how it's like interesting how a lot of the things we do is for our future self, but our future self is like, relax, What are you freaking out about? It already happened.
That's so true.
You already have all this money in the bank account. What are you stressing out about?
Isn't
Yeah.
that funny? Yeah, if we could see ourselves outside of time, then we would not ever be stressed. And we're supposed to do that. We're supposed to be like, okay, when is a time when things did not work out? Even when things go badly, you can always see that led to something great. So if you can find a time when things went totally wrong, terrible, badly, and nothing good came from that ever, I would be surprised. And you really sometimes have to think about it. First, you have to find the good thing and see how you got there. How did I get there? What happened that forced me into this spot at this time for this to happen? And you'll see that's negative things usually.
I do realize that when I look back, start to appreciate why things had to happen in that way. And I wouldn't have it in any other way.
Right.
Even what we call the bad, what we label as the trauma, when you look back and you think, I didn't want this to happen, or I could have, if that didn't happen, then I would be there. But then when you're on the other side and you see how you've built yourself up, how you developed yourself, like you realize, oh, this experience brought me to where I need to be right here. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. And every minute is a gift. And the trap is to always be trying to fix the future.
That was an interesting perspective in the movie Arrival, because it's in one way like the aliens, the heptapods, right? They see life and all the different timelines, and at the same time they're trying to in some ways change a different outcome, knowing everything, but also teaching you to accept the experience and accept the outcomes.
Right. I feel like because she is so open, Dr. Banks in the movie, was that her name? Because she was so open, they were able to give her the real answer for why they came and no one else, because she knew better than to try and learn their language through a shortcut. She knew that you had to really truly understand a few basic concepts first, or it wasn't going to be a correct translation, where it seems that some of the other countries that were dealing with a different group of heptapods were trying to learn through strategy games and things that were more warlike. She was approaching it in a more peaceful understanding, I guess, which
And
I thought was cool.
I thought it was cool too, because I think most of us that are interested in ET contact have an intuitive understanding that they're not here to attack us. They're not here to make us become afraid, because they're a lot more advanced than we are.
Right. They could
And
obliterate us in a second, and they are
right.
not. In fact, almost every ET contact information that we have, which is hundreds of thousands, they helped us. And there were a few, of course, that were bad. However,
Mhm.
now we think that was more of an agenda to besmirch the ETs or the Greys, or maybe it was not helpful beings from outside of Earth, but non helpful beings inside of Earth.
Yeah. I want to know if you speak any other languages besides English.
I was going to ask you that because I know you do. I actually don't. I sang in 6 languages, so I know a lot of words and I know how to read it out loud, like the diction, but my languages are really bad. Like I have a little bit of a few languages, but not a lot. But you speak several languages, right?
Yes. And so do you with light language, and also
Oh,
singing in different languages. I just have an impression that when we think in a different language, our physiology and personality can shift as well. I notice that with my light language and when I speak Chinese or
they talked
Thai.
about that in the movie. Yeah.
And I think what happens is when we speak more light language, are like we have a cultural understanding of 5D. We have a
Yes.
cultural understanding of what it means to be a light being. Like when we are speaking a different language, let's say when I'm speaking Chinese, I have a cultural understanding of Chinese, of being Chinese, that I would not be able to have if I were to only speak English. because there's metaphors, there's
Yes.
nuance, there's subtleties, and I think that changes our physiology as well as our personality.
You're right. And there are certain things about different languages that you have to know, even with diction and singing opera, that you have to understand. French thank you is sometimes no thank you, like things like that. There's things
Hmm.
that you have to understand when you're truly translating what you're singing. But they talk about that in the movie, how when you speak different languages, how it can affect the way that you think and your personality. And I was thinking about that last night really deeply. And when you said that, I got chills all over, because he asks her, he says, "Are you dreaming in the heptapod language?" And her answer was sort of, because she was thinking that way in this non-linear way in her dreams or whatever was happening to her, and in a way that was speaking their language because it was affecting her in that way. And I just realized that when you were talking. That's cool. Now everyone has to go watch the movie.
Yes. I felt that way when you were doing this guided channeled hypnosis meditation for us to meet our star guides. I realized that, like, oh, you were able to take me to that realm and to that place where there's a different way of being, a different way of communication, which which was mainly telepathic. And even though I wasn't physically there, I was very connected to my soul, like in an unconscious way. And I had an inner knowing, like, oh, that's home. And that happens a lot, quite often, when I link up with other highly sensitive souls or starseeds or light workers, where, oh, even though we hear a language for the first time, like, we can identify that as home. Or the more we, I think, embrace our inner light, we have this magnetic attraction to just run into different people that we feel like we have some connection with, even though we just met for the first time.
Yeah, that is true. You have these soul connections. You can feel them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? All of this that we talked about, and
Mm.
how people say that light language can be ET communication. That, okay, when I was taught light language, I was taught that this could be a way to speak with ETs in the future. But I think it's how we speak with beings of light, whether they're galactical or not, right now. So when people talk about like how will we speak to ETs when they come, of course, most people know now that they are telepathic, so it doesn't really matter. But I think it's interesting that I was taught, this is a way we could speak with them in the future a long time ago, but instead it is the way that we speak with them now.
It is the language of frequency.
Yeah.
And so when we are speaking the same language, essentially what we're doing is, like, what we are sharing, the person that is listening is receiving the message. And so maybe light language or telepathy essentially does that. It's communication. As long as the message is delivered and received, because we're on the same frequency and there's a shared understanding, then we are communicating. Even though we might be speaking in light language, but then you're receiving the image maybe you're receiving the like message maybe in symbol or imagery or in thoughts.
And I've taught many trans channel students who needed to do the light language first before they could do the trans channel. So they needed that frequency shift and the ease in which these certain people were able to bring forth light language to then flip over to trans channeling. So I think I always teach it at the beginning of trans channeling. I think it's really important, or I attune people to it at the beginning.
When you attuned me to light language numbers, that was a game changer because I would be speaking light language, but then the numbers just refined everything.
Yeah, I feel like they're just very specific. That's so cool. Thank you for sharing that.
The sequence of the numbers, it refined, like, the intentions and the clearing even more, that I think my linear mind was able to receive it a lot more deeply. It's like, okay, it's complete. Whether with light language, I'm just like, am I going off on a tangent?
No, because think about it. Numbers is its own language. Numbers are language in itself. And I think even people talk about that. Would we use numbers to communicate? I mean, we use numbers 0 and 1 to communicate with a computer.
Maybe we are a computer?
We are. Yeah, I think so. In this matrix. I just thought the main thing was that it really opened my mind to how languages could be so different, because here on this planet, our languages are the same. You know, they're written and they're spoken, and those two things are connected. So the thinking of it, that it could be different, and then having that same experience of using my hands to say what the trance channel was that I was attuned by you, I guess. And those two things happening at the same time made me think there's so many different ways that language could be coming through that we might not even be recognizing. It could be coming through like that now or in the future.
I agree. I really enjoyed the movie and how just, the process, trusting the process of like understanding the ET language also was able to like help. I don't know. Sometimes movies, I'm like, oh, I'm experiencing something vicariously. It was her like unlocking her ability to travel through time mentally. Just having that gift was like an activation in itself, that, oh, this language is going to help you unlock a dormant part of you so that you could see timelines and you could see different visions that are relevant to what you are seeking right now, which was kind of what you were expanding upon when you were channeling your higher self.
Yeah, it's like in the movie, you know, she receives information from, let's say, a different timeline or time, and that gives her the information here, which then makes us always think about time in the way that we experience linearly. What if, and this is always a question, what if, you know, we never invented fire, but someone from the future came back to the past and said, this is fire, or we never invented such and such. It was given to us. But, you know, like how many times have we not actually invented anything? It was just given to us either by aliens or ETs or by a future time traveler. Or, I mean, it's just another thing to think about. Like perhaps everything is that way. I mean, really, everything that I have brought forth, both in like healing understanding and channeling understanding, came from my spirit guides. And that in itself was not actually me inventing anything. I mean, I didn't invent anything. I was just told how to do these things. And so I did them, I tried them, and they worked, you know, and I taught them to other people.
Yeah. And then, like, you know, human you is like, that came from my spirit guides. It didn't come from me. But 5D use, we're all one. So that didn't come from me.
It could be your spirit guides bringing it from you in the future. Or your spirit guides can be you, just different sides of you also, you know?
Yeah.
Most people believe that. So this is very interesting conversation about ET communication. Makes you think.
It makes you think. I'm glad we were able to talk about this.
Me too. I knew you'd be perfect to talk about this too. This was really fun.
Thank you for bringing me on.
Oh, thank you so much for coming. And I want to tell the audience that you can see on the screen or in the show notes that you can connect with Vina for a channeling session for yourself and intuitive guidance for your personal and spiritual growth.
So, yes, I offer trance channeling sessions as well as intuitive guidance and coaching. If you are also on the path to developing your abilities, or you just need a safe container for you to develop and discover who you are and what is happening to you in terms of shifts that are contributed to maybe your spiritual awakening, here for you.
That's wonderful. And of course, I highly recommend Vina. She's amazing. You're amazing.
You are amazing. I'm so glad to meet you. When is your
I got to meet you.
When is your next retreat, by the way?
My next retreat is 2025 in Costa Rica in August.
Yay! You hands down give the best goodie bags. It is so cool. I still have the pendulum that I've been using. And I still have this. I'm
Amazing.
using the Florida soap right now.
You're all deep into your goodie bag from the retreat.
Yes, it took me about a month but to really go deep. And I'm like, okay, now this week I plan on making fairy bread. You gave me like fairy bread ingredients. And then you gave me all these like cool stickers that were fairies. And I'm just like, oh my God, I have crystals. And like, I'm exploring the different offerings from your sponsors. Like, Tracy recently helped me make a crystal grid for intention setting to help me with my website and getting everything like streamlined. So I'm like, wow,
That's awesome.
This is amazing. I'm so thankful.
Well, it's great to have you at the retreat. That was really fun.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks for coming, and thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me for today's episode. If you are a healer or spiritual entrepreneur, present or future, I'd like to invite you to my Facebook group, 5D Daily Spiritual Healers in Higher Dimensions, where I'll be live for more discussion and questions on Thursdays. I'll put the link in the show notes. I'm Rachel Chamness at Sound Waves Heal.